Night in Texas is rarely silent. Mesquite branches scrape the wind like match heads, boxcars groan past river towns, and porch lights click on as if remembering their duty. 5 stories, 5 families, 1 state. And still, no names. We avoid rumor. We follow paper, memory, and evidence that still waits for a match. If a case is here, it's open. By file, by law, and by heart. Picture a 2-lane road on the edge of a twin border city in 1946. Spring heat rides low. Radios fade into static beyond the tree line. A young couple pulls off the highway for a quiet moment. That quiet isn't safe anymore. A figure moves between the pines, indifferent to curfews and porch rifles alike. They will call him the night figure of the borderline moonlight case. He will vanish as completely as he appeared, leaving behind a decade's worth of locked windows and a file that is never closed. 79 years later, law enforcement still keeps a light on for the truth. 5 open files, 1 state. Let's begin. A border-split town with 1 heartbeat, half one state, half the other, sharing a single rhythm. Friday night laughter drifts from cafes. Service uniforms lean against chrome fenders. The air smells of fuel and honeysuckle. Beyond the last streetlight are the lanes where young people park to borrow privacy from the dark. Then, February tilts. A couple is attacked near their car. Both survive, bruised and bloodied, the story blurry with shock. 10 days later, another pair. Gunfire this time. The headline coins a name for the series: The Moonlight Attacks. Curfews follow, streets empty. The city learns how sound behaves when a community is afraid. Doors shut softer, dogs bark longer, and every rustle sounds like someone becoming someone else. Patrols multiply. Police from both jurisdictions share maps and fear in equal measure. By April, the night figure hangs in every radio broadcast. The pattern is brutally simple. Weekends, edges of town, cars left open to the sky. No ransom notes, no calls, no face. For 10 weeks, the city moves like it is holding its breath. Hardware stores sell out of locks and deadbolts. Street dances vanish. Church socials end before sunset. Parents call their kids in early and watch the driveway until the door clicks. Patrol cars spread across farm roads, headlights sweeping through oaks, radios crackling with cross-border call signs. At the scenes, .32 caliber shells, tire tracks smudged by dew, footprints that end where the grass flattens. State investigators search barns and drainage ditches. Neighbors volunteer to guard perimeters. Each theory rises and collapses. Escaped convict, war veteran, jealous husband, drifter. None fit for long. Reporters write by kerosene light in hotel rooms, measuring fear in inches of column. A hardware clerk tells one, "I sold out of padlocks before lunch." A school principal issues a rule against after-dark events, and every parent nods without argument. At night, the moon bleaches the gravel white, and every road looks like the one he might come down next. When the attacks stop that summer, nobody believes it is over. Relief arrives quietly, like humidity lifting off skin. The night patrols remain for years. Couples stay closer to town. People keep habits learned in fear. Keys on hooks by the door. Curtains shut before sunset. Porch lights that burn a little longer than necessary. Suspense becomes a local instinct. The closest police ever came to a name was a car thief we'll call Mr. S., arrested months later on unrelated charges. A spouse said he confessed. Then she withdrew her statement. Under 1940s law, a spouse couldn't be forced to testify against a husband. The truth collapsed between statute and fear. Ballistics were partial. Some bullets looked like matches. Others did not. Fingerprints blurred under humidity. Paper records warped in storage. No DNA. No national databases. No satellites to test alibis against time and terrain. Deputies scribbled shoe sizes on napkins. Reporters copied rumors from front porches. Each piece aged a little before it could be checked. Decades later, investigators still reopen the file and see a map that breathes. Each attack a pulse on opposite sides of a border. Each name a ghost in ink that won't fade. Evidence ages like paper in an attic, brittle where you need it strong, blurred where you need it clear. The night figure remains a contour formed by the absence of a face and the presence of fear. Did he leave? Did he die? Or did he simply learn our locks and walk among us, unremarked?
The borderline moonlight case did more than scare a border city. It standardized a response. Curfews, cross-jurisdiction patrols, evidence pooling across a state line. The earliest drafts of a serial case playbook were written under that moon. The file remains open in spirit and in paperwork. If you possess family journals, photographs, or heirloom items tied to the spring of '46 in that region, reach out only through verified law enforcement tip lines listed in the description. Facts help. Rumors harm. If you have something concrete, share it with the people who can test it. A Central Texas capital, late 19th century. Victorian lamps and unpaved margins. A city swelling with railwork, saloons and boarding houses. Night streets carry hoofbeats and piano tin, then quiet down to boots on plank sidewalks. Between late 1884 and 1885, an unknown attacker strikes in bedrooms and yards, almost always at night, often with a tool taken from the property itself. Newspapers reach for language and brand it with a name we won't repeat. Here, it's the Midnight Border series. Victims are initially domestic workers sleeping in outbuildings or rear rooms. Later, the pattern broadens. The city wakes to shattered doors, blood in the yard, silent wells, and neighbors lining fences with lanterns. What starts as grim rumor hardens into a cadence of killings no one can ignore. Beds move, night shifts rotate, and oil lamps burn too fast to be useful and too slow to feel safe. Law enforcement is rudimentary. Uneven training, thin staffing, few formal protocols. Detectives circulate theories and seize suspects whose stories sound wrong or whose faces match fear. Some confessions surface under duress. Others evaporate when alibis and daylight arrive. Records are inconsistent. Handwritten statements, smudged docket notes, pages that disappear into private desk drawers. The council boosts night patrols and considers curfews. Neighborhoods coordinate watches. Men take turns with lanterns while children sleep in central rooms to reduce points of entry. Reporters publish sketches and suppositions, sometimes responsibly, sometimes not, mixing facts with narrators' flourishes that readers mistake for official theory. The result is a collision. Rumor at highway speed, evidence in a horse-drawn cart. Arrests mount. A suspect is paraded, another released. A third vanishes when a timeline collapses under scrutiny. Competing incentives warp the search. Political pressure to calm a frightened city. Business interests wanting fares unshadowed. Citizens demanding a single name they can pin on the fear. In that heat, the wrong name is always easier to find than the right one. Over it all, the offender keeps to the margins, slipping between sheds and shade trees, choosing nights with cloud cover, favoring structures that offer the shortest route between intrusion and exit.
Entry patterns suggest someone who watches routines. Doors are forced or lifted off swollen hinges. Windows are slid or pried. In some scenes, the backyard gate is the cleanest line on the map. The weapon is often an axe or similar tool taken on site, used, then left. That choice speaks to opportunism and speed. Arrive empty-handed, leave lighter, carry nothing incriminating through alleys. Victim selection evolves, initially rear quarters behind houses, later expanding, which complicates profiling. There are similarities: late hours, sleeping targets, yards that provide cover, but not enough to unlock a single elegant model. Across files appear phrases like, "No clear footprints," "Lantern extinguished," "Neighbors heard a cry but saw nothing." The darkness is a conspirator, and the technology of the day can't betray it. Forensics in the 1880s are limited. No DNA. No standardized scene photography early on. Blood typing won't arrive in a useful way for decades. Fingerprint classification is only just emerging elsewhere. Evidence storage is informal. Sacks, boxes, drawers, vulnerable to contamination, loss, and the slow decay of paper in damp rooms. Modern lab tools can sometimes read the past, but only if the past survives. An axe head in a museum drawer might hold microscopic residues. A dress hem sealed in a family Bible could carry touch DNA where fingers pressed. But the chain of custody across 140 years is fragile. Even when material remains, analysts must separate artifact from contamination. A fingerprint left by a 1950s archivist, a smudge from a 1970s display volunteer. Time does not politely step aside for science. Science has to thread the moving crowd of decades. Investigators today catalog what can be rescued. Site maps reconstructed from fire insurance diagrams. Distances measured with modern GIS to test line-of-sight claims. Newspaper scans compared to court ledgers to separate true arrests from rumor. Some researchers propose the offender watched for household transitions, paydays, moves, delivery days when a gate was left unlatched. Others model the crimes as a path problem, shortest nighttime route between likely refuge and exit points, with the attack as a brief, violent bend in that path. And yet, certainty remains scarce. The case occupies a peculiar crossroad, too distant for memory to be reliable, too recent for myth to fully detach from record. What we can say is measured and sober. A series of attacks shook this city in 1884 to 1885. The offender exploited darkness, routine, and architecture, and the surviving record is thin where we most need it thick. We'll close this files segment for now, where the documents thin out. At the edge of a yard, along a fence line that keeps no secrets, beneath a lamp that burned all night and still saw nothing. The Midnight Border Series, 1884 to 1885, occupies an uneasy place in history. Early enough to predate the playbook, late enough to haunt it. It forced cities to think about lighting, patrol patterns, and how working quarters at the backs of properties could become targets. It also reminds us that record-keeping is not a neutral actor. Gaps are decisions, and decisions echo. If you hold family papers, letters, diaries, or photographs dating to those years in the Central Texas capital, consider sharing scans with recognized archives and historians who coordinate with law enforcement when material appears probative. Rumor corrodes, documents clarify. When you're ready, use only verified historical or law enforcement channels listed in the description. We move forward a century, but the lesson stands. Details matter. A major Texas city, December 1991. A neighborhood dessert shop near closing time, fluorescent hum, cold cases reflecting small neon,
a bell at the door that's trained to be cheerful even when the night is not. Witnesses recall last customers, a few routine interactions, nothing that announces what will follow. After midnight, first responders arrive to fire. Inside, a crime scene that will define the case. Arson used as erasure, evidence altered by heat and water, timelines complicated by smoke. The public shorthand becomes quick, the Northside shop fire case, but investigators face a slower reality, a layered event with few clean edges. In the days that follow, tips multiply, threads crisscross. The city learns that silence after tragedy sounds nothing like peace. It sounds like phones ringing and then going quiet, over and over. Early prosecutions arrive, names attached, narratives built, court calendars inked. Years later, those convictions will be challenged and then vacated, with appellate language that underscores concerns about reliability and process. Parallel to the courtroom story, lab reports evolve. Exclusions appear, interpretations shift, and the file reopens its arms to uncertainty. This is the part of unsolved work that resists television pace. A case can be both carefully investigated and still incomplete. A theory can hold persuasive weight and still not meet the bar the law requires. The public sometimes hears vacated as a synonym for resolved. It is not. It means the ledger is not finished, and the duty to get it right persists. Families sit through hearing after hearing, each one promising clarity and delivering only a different sort of rain. Investigators cycle back through interviews, retest materials as techniques improve, and keep the door open to data that did not
exist when the first reports were written. The tension is constant. Protect the integrity of the record and keep listening for what the record failed to catch the first time. With time, forensic tools sharpen. YSTR analysis can sometimes detect male line DNA in mixtures where older methods stalled. Updated lab protocols reduce contamination risk. Digital case systems track chain of custody more tightly than paper ever could. But the law is not only chemistry, it's context. A partial profile, without probative linkage or without a clear route into admissibility, may illuminate a path and still not reach the finish line. Arson complicates everything. Fire is an editor that does not share its drafts. Heat can mask small truths. Water moves evidence from where it lived to where it doesn't belong. Reconstructing such a scene is a discipline that mixes math with patience. Heat patterns, ventilation paths, burn signatures versus fall-down artifacts. Even with modern modeling, the question, what happened first, can sit just out of reach. Investigators continue to weigh statements against physical realities. Does a claimed sightline survive a remeasure with today's tools? Do timestamps harmonize when mapped against verified business logs and contemporaneous calls? Can a later recollection be anchored by something fixed, a receipt, a photograph, a patrol car log? Every year adds another chance for someone to recall a detail they didn't know mattered, or to bring forward an item once thought trivial. A personal photo that accidentally captures a license plate in the corner. A holiday letter that, read anew, timestamps a person in or out of a location. The file remains open. The door stays on its hinges. We'll pause this case at the lab bench, mid-process, not mid-story, and move on to the next story. The Northside shop fire case endures because it teaches two hard truths at once: that science can sharpen while certainty stays distant, and that patience is not the same thing as delay. It shaped conversations about arson-compromised scenes, mixture DNA, and how appellate rulings interact with community memory. If you have first-hand materials, photos, date-stamped receipts, contemporaneous writings, share only through verified law enforcement channels listed in the description. So avoid rumor, follow official updates.
Families deserve accuracy that can hold up in court, not just a headline that holds for a day. We turn now to a winter shopping trip in 1974. December 23, 1974. A regional city in North Texas. A last-minute shopping run before Christmas, lists folded into coat pockets, a mall map behind glass, carols looping over the PA. 3 girls head to a busy shopping center and do ordinary holiday errands, gifts, small items. They don't come home. Hours stretch. Worry ripens into alarm. The family car is located in the parking area with purchased gifts inside. No sign of the girls. Security checks are rerun, store employees retraced for last seen, and the timeline tightens to a window that feels too narrow for a clean answer and too wide to point to one door. The scene looks almost polite in the way absence sometimes does. A vehicle, items, lists, and then a blank. Detectives begin the standard sweep. Tire chalk records, lot attendants, store clerks, exit routes to the nearest freeways, witness calls from shoppers who think they remember a face or a color but not the hour. In the days that follow, a letter arrives, purporting to be from one of the girls. The authenticity is disputed. Interpretations shift as handwriting opinions and postal details are weighed and reweighed. The message complicates the narrative rather than completing it. That's a common gravity in missing person files, an item that bends the story without settling it. Rumors gather because holidays concentrate memory. Many people were in the same place for the same reasons. Theories branch. Voluntary flight, abduction by a known party, opportunistic stranger, staged departure turned unsafe. Responsible handling requires framing them as hypotheses, not conclusions. Witness statements are reviewed against fixed anchors, store hours, cash register tapes, layaway slips, lot sweeping schedules, and the geometry of how long it would take to reach any of the exits by foot or by car. Investigators chart the mall's layout as it was then. Entrances, service corridors, stairwells, the sight lines from anchor stores to parking zones under winter light that fades early. They overlay that with what's practical. What could be done in minutes without drawing notice 2 days before Christmas? The answer, painfully, is quite a lot. Crowds hide patterns, and seasonal hurry dulls vigilance. Families field calls that promise clarity and deliver only static. Tip sheets fill with descriptions that wobble under re-interview. Blue car becomes gray. Tuesday becomes Monday. I'm sure becomes I think. Detectives turn their attention back to the ground truth. The found car, the receipts, the gift list, the distances. The file does not go still. It changes shape. Over decades, searches and rechecks bring fresh eyes to old coordinates. Creek beds scanned with better sonar. Lots compared with then versus now aerials. Storage spaces revisited as ownership records become digitized. Each new technology offers a modest pry bar. Ground sensing systems for select areas, license plate databases that can backtest surviving photographs where a bumper edge shows. GIS to model the shortest routes between reported sightings. Detectives revisit the parking lot map and lay transparency over transparency. 1974 layout, later renovations, current street grid. They test theories against time. How long to move 3 people from a store to a car unseen? How long to redirect them from a lot to a service corridor? They compare holiday staffing lists with later employment records. Whose names recur across interviews? Who left town immediately after? Who added or dropped details across tellings? Community memory participates. People bring forward Polaroids they thought were only holiday snapshots, sometimes capturing background corners, sign fonts, a parked sedan, a window display that pins a time. Former employees recall habits. Which doors were propped for deliveries, which elevators stuck, which stairwells echoed enough to warn someone they weren't alone. Each recollection is graded for specificity and checked against what can be verified. The case accrues almosts, almost a plate number, almost a match to a description in another city, almost a pattern that survives comparison across years. And still, the core remains. 3 girls, 1 car, gifts left behind, and a date that never concluded. If you lived that holiday near the shopping center and kept something because you weren't sure it mattered, now is the time to let trained investigators see it through official channels listed below. A photograph corner, a stamped envelope, a journal line with an hour beside a store name. Small things sit heavy in long cases. We pause here, at the edge of a parking map that has changed twice since 1974, with the search still returning to the same squares. Not because the past refuses to move, but because every new tool lets us look again. The Holiday Mall Trio teaches a discipline that long cases demand. Map the ordinary until the ordinary reveals what's missing. Holiday crowds, a found car, gifts still bagged, facts that seem unremarkable until they refuse to add up. Decades of rechecks prove that time is a tool if you use it carefully. If you lived that December near the shopping center and kept items from the area, photos, receipts, journals, even parking lot snapshots, share them only through verified law enforcement tip lines listed below. Avoid rumor. Stay with what can be dated and tested. Families deserve conclusions that stand. A suburban winter afternoon that feels ordinary. A pink bicycle, a neighborhood lot, chatter carried thinly by cold air. The window of time is narrow, the kind that makes a whole city learn the difference between minutes and moments. Witness accounts form the first lattice. A child on a bike, a vehicle, a sudden absence. Patrol units canvass, neighbors sweep blocks, media bulletins go wide. Days later, the discovery no family should face. The child is found, and the case turns from search to homicide. The name we now see on highways and phones began as a single neighborhood, a single family, and a weight that community still carries. From this case comes a system, a coordinated, criteria-based national child abduction alert network. It moves faster than any single phone tree, region-wide broadcasts with law enforcement at the center. Message boards, overpasses, smartphone banners, a chorus designed for speed. The impact is measurable in recoveries, but it doesn't rewrite what's still open. The Riverview child case remains unsolved. The legacy honors the victim by shortening the distance between danger and response for other children, and by keeping this file alive until the right detail arrives. Investigators continue to ask for specific, testable information, not theories. That includes credible recollections from January 1996 in the relevant neighborhoods, notes on suspicious vehicles or behavior you documented at the time, any preserved media that can be date-anchored, old camcorder footage, developed film with lab stamps, photographs with processing dates, diary entries with times. Items with verifiable timestamps are the most valuable. If you're unsure whether a detail matters, submit it through the verified tip lines listed below so professionals can evaluate it against the file. Do not post unvetted names publicly. That harms families and cases alike. This case matters because it built a national alarm, and because one family still waits for the reason behind a siren we now hear everywhere. If you hold anything concrete, however small, contact the appropriate local department and regional Crime Stoppers through the official channels below.
Facts travel farther when they move inside a case file. 5 open files, 1 state. From a border road in 1946 to a neighborhood lot in 1996, the through line is steady. Truth ages, but it doesn't retire. Next episode. New Texas cases, new timelines, fresh angles, and older archives, both worth turning. If you heard something tonight that you can anchor to a date, a place, or a document, use the verified law enforcement lines listed below. Support families by sharing facts, not speculation. And if you want the next installment, stay with this series. We'll keep the light on the record and off the rumor.